Okay. So in us understanding tactics, that's what we were talking about. Tactics, uh regularly having political meetings where we just like what we did on Clubhouse, where we looked at the bill pertaining to the funding going to medical schools. Um, and we had to look at the bill to get past the rhetoric that was being presented by those who were changing this bill into a racial ethnicity spin. So when we're looking at tactic and understanding how the political world works, we have to exercise it ourselves. In order to do that, we have to have education. But it's not just, like I said, understanding the headlines. So what Martin said was education without social action is a one-sided value because it has no power potential. There's nothing behind it. Social action without education is a weak expression of pure energy. So you can have the people out in the streets, you can have them protesting, but if it's not with education, it is a weak expression of pure energy. You really want to accomplish anything, it'll just wind up fizzling out. Deeds uninformed by educated thought can take false directions. And that's why, yes, meetings are very important, not just on Zoom, but in our local communities, raising up educators to understand, to make it plain and clear to the public. This bill is in the House that's passing. This man wants senator's seat. This is what he voted for in times past. This is how it affects our community. This how many votes it took for him to get in. Various topics could be taken by each educator to explain to their regular population and holding community meetings once quarterly or just having it available once you put flyers out, even if one or two people show up first. You begin to explain what's happening in the community. So even if you have a legislator, city legislator, who's doing this and doing that, well, it's our duty to find out, you know, uh what is the job of the city legislator. We have people arguing about the mayor, but unless you understand that the mayor can have all the ideas he wants, just like the president, but if the legislative branch is not on board, then nothing happens. So that calls you to look at your legislators. And so people don't know this is how it works, you know. And so when they begin to understand how it works and look at the numbers, you may have more people popping up to the meetings. And an example of one of the meetings is like what we're doing tonight and other political education classes. We sort of haven't done them in a while because of a lot of stuff going on, but it's something that's why I want educators. We have to be educators so these meetings can continue, whether it's men or women, and understanding different bills, different things passing, whether locally or according to the state, so we can have social action with education, and so we can have education, and we're not uninformed, so we won't take false directions. Now, think of a man who's experiencing this. He's experiencing it and he's speaking. I'm arguing from experience. He's seen where all of these different movements go. He's seen how different so-called preachers and other people struggling for political um, redress from the government, how it fizzled out, how it failed. So when he's saying deeds uninformed by educated thought can take false directions, when we go into action and confront our adversaries, we must be as armed with knowledge as they. Well, you know how that happens? We read the bill, not just read what someone said about it. We take the time and get a record of Agenda 2025. It's 1,000 pages. You have technically, when you have a political team, everybody take a part. No one person's gonna read 1,000 pages. Everybody take a part. You read such and such section. This person reads such and such section, and then that's how you inform the group. Or until you have that type of membership, you have it as a reference, and then when someone bringing it up, you look at the bill, you look at the decree, you look at what it's suggesting, so you can see how it's written. And that's what we want to do today, to again to put it in practice what I'm saying. So that's how we will have as much knowledge as they. Not listen to some news journalist explain to us something. We listen to his explanation after we read the bill, just like we just don't listen to the preacher to tell us what he think the Bible say. We got to read it. It's the same thing. That's why when the scripture saying make full proof of your ministry, we got to make full proof. And I'm speaking of one that have been a victim to leftist rhetoric. And my, really learning early, I reflect back on some of the books I will read and uh how it hit me emotionally and the injustices, you know, and I think one person who really began to explain or begin to show that there's differences, even if with those who claiming to be in behalf of the people and socialists. And that was Lenin. His critique and his analysis is so analytical that I admire it. I admire it because I want to, breaking stuff down to the minutest point. That could be tiresome to some. But if you really trying to find out, yeah, that's very important. And it was Lenin that first began to expose people who I thought was like, man, they on point. It took time for me to realize, even though he say a lot of good stuff, um, my man, the elder, he's an anarchist. Um, Chomsky, Noam Chomsky, he was some of the first guys I've run into because they get more publicity. Kyle Kautsky and men like this. Next thing you know, I'm reading a text where Lenin is chopping up Kyle Kautsky, you know. And so that was my first experience. And this happened, probably over a decade ago when I began to see things and understand. And then when I started to study the American government, I seen my own rhetoric in some of the videos because I didn't understand how the system worked. And I am saying they and this and America that and all this other stuff. I'm like, damn. I had to remove videos, 5, 6, 7 years ago, as early as that, because I'm learning more and beginning to understand and beginning to digest, and it's beginning to register to me how it works. And it works just like in a court of law. And that's what I'm trying to practice. Where and what is the offense? What are the nuances? No matter how I feel, how is it legally? How is it really? Before we talk about even how we feel. And so this is what Martin is explaining. We must be as armed with knowledge as they. We gotta know what the initial constitution or law or bill is saying. Then Martin says, our policies should have the strength of deep analysis beneath them. So whatever policies we're running on, they must be established on deep analysis. We just can't put it in general. We just can't, oh, whoa, this is what's going on. And just like the scriptures say, we can't judge after the hearing of the ears or what our eyes see. We have to judge according to what is just and what leads to it. So we have to have this deep analysis beneath them to be able to challenge the clever sophistries of our opponents. And that's what we're facing. So to have rooms, we have to be educated. We have to understand. We have to have copies of the Constitution. You in New York State, you in California, get a law book for your state. I would love to have a law book for all 50 states, personally. But it's a gradual building in the library. But New York State, start basic. What are the basic laws that the police and law enforcement got to abide by? You know, get these laws. Attorneys get paid big bucks because of convenience. They study these laws. There's no reason why we shouldn't be attorneys and to understand what our city or state or country is doing in order for us to challenge their cleverness. We just can't go off of emotions. A careful analysis shows it always fizzles out or we get caught out there. We just can't argue because we think something is bad. We get caught out there. Just like when I listen in and I would listen to the debates with Fauci and how the senator get up and tell Fauci off and cuss him out. Oh, he told him a thing or two. I don't care about that. That's all drama. Let me know what's going on lawfully. Let me find out lawfully. So I'm not on the edge of my seat seeing if this guy is going to be prosecuted if that's not even, he was within his full boundaries. And so that leads us to more political education. That's how laws are formed. When you understand the situation and you realize there is no law to stop this nuance, that's when you come together to fight for something like that. You see, and this is the development of the country. There was no laws on the books that permitted former slaves to vote. They were at the time that they did the amendment, I should say, because there was various times in different states where some slaves and black folks were allowed to vote under different criteria and all this other stuff. Well, once you've seen that there was a problem, there was a legislative way to address it, make amendments, change laws. That's how the fight is waged. But you can't do it if you off of emotion. They just looking at you. They don't care. You get up in a town meeting and you tell a basic person off, and you tell them how corrupt they are, da 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 da, and they sit and listen to that until you're done. They give you 3 minutes to cuss them out. Okay, after 3 minutes, we're gonna move on with the business. Now the same thing you cussing them out about, where they moving on. Now the contractor's gonna come in. He's gonna gentrify the area. We're gonna bring in da 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 da. That's just how it works, man. And it works like this over and over again. So unless we have within our policies and what we stand for, first we have to even be educated to present policies, and then these policies must be strengthened with a deep analysis. That's the only way we can challenge what we're dealing with. All right. And I think tonight is what I wanted to deal with to show an example of this. Okay. So I was going on and on. Any questions or comments or anything people want to say off of what I just finished explaining? Any clarity or anything it may be. Okay. You got to, if something isn't clear, just don't assume just confirm it. All right. Are you saying this? Are you saying that? What about this? What about that? Right? Because it's important that we understand this. And like I say, I'm not up here or saying this to get a round of applause or to sound like such and such, such and such. My goal is to educate, to create a solid, disciplined, educated assembly or group or party or church, right? This is very important, as far as I'm concerned. Not just you just sit back and listen to me. It's important that we understand what's happening. So any questions or comments thus far?
Yeah, I got a comment. And it's something that I've been analyzing. A few conversations, whether it's with, one of my own kids, one of my adult kids, or, you know, even, comrades, or it just don't matter who it is, we are going to find ourselves in a position where all we can do is lean on our feelings. And that's really like no slight to anybody, because if we don't actually have any inquiry on, the actual documents that we should read, this is what happens. You're like, thinking about the text streams that we have, and I get it. Sometimes we don't necessarily always pick up the Constitution and read it like we're reading a novel. But I think that these issues that come up, like when we talked about immigration, should be an opportunity to say, well, what is the law concerning immigration? And then, I was telling somebody recently, we have all of these tools. Like, you have AI, which is a really great tool to help for things like this, because you can ask it, what does the Constitution says about, this particular situation? Even, what's going on in the LA riots as of, today's date. And it will actually, because it did it with me, it referred me back to Article 1, Section 8, under the neutralization law. It referred you to Amendment 5 and Amendment 14. And it also began to even enact, what Trump was invoking, because the only criminal thing that they were trying to make out of the situation was him deploying the troops. And they said, well, it's not a resurrection, only under resurrection, whatever. But even then, and that's where I see Gavin Newsom and the Attorney General was State Attorney General trying to make an argument, but he didn't say he sent them down there for the riots. He sent them down there to protect ICE in a federal building. And then just skipping over the fact that you had like over 200 arrests, couple people was found with guns. There's so much damage to property. They forget about what happened in Seattle because no major news was covering it. You literally had to watch YouTube and get real time new, what was going on from people who was in Seattle, and you saw the takeover of the streets, property damage, people. Matter of fact, because a lot of them had guns, they killed one cat that was driving towards them. I remember that. And so we have to ask, like, okay, what is the rules? What is the illegalness that supposedly is happening? Because if we don't really look into these things, then we're going to start leaning on our feelings, and that's where they get us at. For every person who supports leftist or democratic ideas, I mean, you could say they do it on the right too when they promote certain other aspects of feelings, but people get this thing, and I see even people who I would say, brothers or sisters or anybody, we should take this opportunity to read. I get people who don't know much of anything, but it works strongly, because if we don't take the time to have these in our arsenal, even use this as an opportunity, okay, well, let me look that up and read it and then bring it to the table so we can dialogue about it. Post it in a group so that way we all can dialogue and build on it. Then the same effect that happens to the rest of the folk out here who are educated is going to spill right over. It's almost guaranteed. And I think that does a disservice, because the only thing that's going to happen is opinionated statements. And it's just going to lead to, well, the government, they all oppression. Oppression don't come from the government. It comes from the capitalists. But, it's little nuances like that we'll tend to either forget or we fully don't understand yet, because the material has to be read, especially when it's thrown right in your face. The conversation is legal conversation. So we need to look up legality. It'd be the same way we did it with a Bible. Instead of you hear somebody arguing, you're going to argue back the rhetoric, getting your feelings, or you're going to try to crack the Bible open and see what the Bible says in context concerning somebody's point of argument. But when it comes to political matters, we got to do the same thing. I just wanted to put that out there, because that's just been heavy on my mind. And I land.
I just wanted to say real quick, just to land back off of the elder LaShawn, you know what I'm saying? That's very key because I saw a little bit of the video. The guy was accusing Trump of breaking the law, saying that he needs to give Gavin Newsom control of the troops that he sent into LA. So that's the narrative that the Democrats are using. They're taking it and running it. And the media, or more so the leftist media or the liberal media, they're going to probably take that narrative and run with it and make it seem like what Trump is doing is illegal. So that's something we definitely need to look into and be well informed of those type of twisted facts, or as they will say, alternative facts, or however you want to call it. But just that little bit of misinformation will cause thousands and thousands of people to believe that Trump did something or he did something illegal, because there's already a narrative that he's already breaking the law so many times. So people are just going to assume that he broke the law because a Democrat or someone who's opposing Trump said it. So we definitely got to be aware and pay attention to that as well. And I know right now I'm hearing about the unmarked vehicles and things of that nature. There's definitely, I believe there could be a way to explain that or to give us more clarity about what's going on with that. And I'll just leave it at that.
Hey, real quick, I just wanted to say, in the Signal, I had posted that PDF. It's I PDF'd a web page, and I purposely marked those certain brackets around certain paragraphs that let you know directly that okay, this is something that's they're trying to use, because Gavin Newsom, his name is coming up as potential run for president after Trump's term, and it's an article where, because of the immigration issue that happened during Biden's administration, and many people voted for Trump because of the immigration issue, especially within the sanctuary cities. The catch and release thing really didn't. I'm not gonna say it didn't work, but this was also one of the reasons why a lot of people also was flooding into. They allowed so many people to come in, and so now by making this an issue, it's an argument point. As one Democratic strategist was trying to point out, so this argument, as well as the tariffs of the tax bill, they're trying to make their argument points now to try to recover the Democrats' image as the champions for the immigrants, if you will. But it's in that article. I just wanted to point that out. I got the ones highlighted in the bracket, so you'll get a chance to see what I've noticed. But I'll land.
Okay, anybody else want to add anything or say anything from what was said before we go further? Okay. Everybody could hear us pretty good?
Yes.
Okay. So what was brought out, I want to bring out some stats. So again, almost like a template of whoever want to stand up to be educators, especially as we form the NMP, the Nazarene Messianic Party. Here's a template of how and we can go about it. Any of the political education classes, I would say. But here's just another example as I learn as well. Let's look at the facts first. Okay. So before we get into, or the alleged, because we all still gathering data from other places. Okay. So laws was talking about being broken. I'll play this briefly and let me know if everybody can hear it. Just I'm going to play it and just give me a 1 if it's clear. If you don't give me a 1, then I'm assume that you don't hear it.
Good morning, everybody. Rob Bonta, California Attorney General. Thank you all for joining us today on the heels of our success in
Everybody, okay, I see 3. Okay. 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 Brother Nishan, you on? Can you hear it? Sister Mandy, somebody, okay. You around your mic? I want to see who's there. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna uh, I'm gonna play part of it, this video, and I'm gonna stop where I will argue that immediately um things were suspect that he said. Now, the video's like 19 minutes long and he entertained questions in interview. It's almost redundant. So the first couple of minutes, 2, 3 minutes, is where he laid his foundation. And this is the foundation first being laid when we're talking about Trump broke laws. So this is, and when I was asking during the feed, what law has he broken? I'm not asking in the context of necessarily me being a Trumpster. I mean, to put it in context, whether people believe it or not. Okay, I agitate a little bit on my job. And so on my job in the different shops that talk about politics, you have literally at least one who's an extreme for the left and one who's an extreme for the right. Literally. And in our shop, we have that. Okay. And one is an extreme Donald J. Trump. That is the man. He is, you know, and it's comical in a sense, and I agitate a little bit. We go back and forth, but still, you learn. You learn from each side, and you can learn. And then you have the extreme left, and normally they get emotional. They only could quote one-sided news articles, and not even really quote them. They just say what the news said. And so, to be fair, I'm sort of in the middle. I'll agitate both sides. So even if they said something about Biden, or like when they talk about Kamala word salads, I didn't run on that platform because I understood what she was saying. A lot of the things she was saying, at least when they called it word salads, and she had talked about, forgiving or learning from the past or the wounds from the past being mended in the future. I get it. I get what she was saying. So in my mind, I thought some of the things that they were saying was word salads. I think they probably just didn't really quite comprehend what she was saying. But nevertheless, whether it's Biden or anyone else, to be fair, let's get to the facts. Okay. So whether it's Trump or anyone else, and before we go forward, I'll give another example on Trump's side. They said, well, he was receiving an airplane. He being the president of the United States can't receive any gifts. Well, one argument from the conservative side in our shop was saying, well, the plane didn't belong to him. It was given to the United States military. Okay. So my question in there, and they both got frustrated, or because it wasn't just two, it was a couple, is where does it say he can't receive a gift? Where is it said? I've heard people say it, y'all arguing it here. What does it actually say? And so I passed out a constitution some time back and I said, hey man, you got your constitution on you? Yes. He pulls it up. We read the constitution and it says that he can actually receive it if it's been okayed by said and said Congress or people in authority, something along that line. But people only gave us a part of it and all emotional. He can't do that, this and that. Well, when we read the Constitution, it straightened everything out. People got upset, but the question was, what exactly was wrong? And, okay, now keep that in mind. because we're going to use the same practice today. And it's the same thing we have to use outside of emotion, outside of all of that. Let's get to the fact. So so far, this guy is talking about their partial victories or success. Okay, so I'm going to start from the beginning again, and I'm going to stop because, and we're going to get into it. If anyone else want to say something while we're listening to it, say it so we can stop it for clarity. Because we're going to challenge him, this attorney general. We're going to challenge him today. Okay, so listen to what he's saying and take some notes if you have to.
During a temporary restraining order to block President Trump and Defense Secretary. Good evening, everybody. Rob Bonta, California Attorney General. Thank you all for joining us today on the heels of our success in securing a temporary restraining order to block President Trump and Defense Secretary Hegseth from deploying members of the California National Guard in Los Angeles and directing them to return control of the Guard to the governor of California, Governor Gavin Newsom. The order goes into effect.
All right. Let me stop there because this is important that we pick this up. The stop order is in regard to what exactly? Did anybody pick that up? The stop order is in regard to what? Stopping what?
Trump from utilizing the National Guard.
National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
Keep
Can
that.
you make that screen bigger?
Let's see. I think. Oh, no, actually I can't unless I go out and expand it.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay. Let me see. National Guard. Okay, everybody got that. It's a stop order on deploying the National Guard. Keep that in mind. All right, let's continue.
At noon tomorrow. This isn't the final decision in our case, and it doesn't yet make a determination on the Marines that have been deployed. However,
did y'all catch that part? It doesn't make a determination on who?
I didn't hear exactly what he said, but something that has been deployed.
Okay, I'm gonna start it again. I'm gonna let it play through so I won't interrupt. And
Okay.
is it loud enough for you all? Is it low? Or
I can hear him. I kind of wish it was like some captions.
Oh, well, let me see. Maybe I can. I think they'll let me do the captions, but wait a minute. Let me see if they'll let me do. They're not letting me do full screen. Hold on 1 second. This is what we do. So let's hold on one moment. For the sake of it, let's see.
Good evening, everybody. Rob Bonta, California Attorney General. Thank you all for joining us today on the heels of our success in securing a temporary restraining order to block President Trump and Defense Secretary Hegseth from deploying members of the California National Guard in Los Angeles and directing them to return control of the Guard to the governor of California, Governor Gavin Newsom. The order goes into effect at noon tomorrow. This isn't the final decision in our case, and it doesn't yet make a determination on the Marines that have been deployed. However, it's still a very important step forward in protecting our communities and our rights while we continue to make our case in court. It's also a critical early indication that upon quick review of the facts in our case, the court sees the merits of our argument regarding the unlawful activation of the National Guard. As we argue in our lawsuit, the Trump administration had no right to federalize 4,000 California National Guards people without authorization from Governor Newsom. Trump's actions were illegal, trampled on our state sovereignty, escalated tension on the ground, and promoted rather than quelled unrest. With his orders, the president invoked a law that can only be used in the event of a potential rebellion, threats of a foreign invasion, or if the federal government cannot enforce federal laws. None of that is the case here.
Oh, I'm sorry. So everybody catch that? So far, the National Guard have been deployed, and he's saying it was unlawful for Trump to do that without the state. So the idea is that the state will receive control of the National Guard again. However, for the Marines, it has not yet been determined. Everybody catch all of that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, now this is important. Anybody understand why the Marines, it hasn't been determined by the Marine yet? Possibly why, according to the Constitution?
From I understand, there's no state jurisdiction over the Marine. That's
Right, it's federal.
It's federal, right?
And do y'all understand the position of the president, who he is according to the military?
Yeah, he's the commander in chief.
Yes. He is the commander in chief. So all of his troops, he have direct command over all of federal troops.
Yeah, see, a lot of people don't even know that. I remember that from junior high school. So that's crazy.
Yeah. So right now the argument is, okay, well, he intervened into state sovereignty by deploying the National Guard, the state's National Guard. And he said this is unlawful and they want that right back so that they can have control again over the National Guard. Because apparently he used the National Guard as a militia, in which he have a right to according to the Constitution. Okay. Now, these are the first facts. Now, so the first accusation against him, which is unlawful, is that he used the National Guard without the permission of the governor. Everybody understand that to be the fact? Or you want me to replay
Yes.
No, we understand. Well,
Okay.
we know that's the fact that I would say they're misleading people about.
Well, he did. He did actually, well, according to what I understand, right? He could be misleading, I don't know. But according to what I understand, he did. And what I left in what I left in the signal was that there were peculiar or interesting nuances. And that's where King was explaining the cleverness of our adversaries. And it's through these nuances that they're trying to trap the president of this present administration. Okay, and we want to look at the nuances. So first and foremost, the unlawful act that he's claiming is deploying the National Guard without the governor's consent. And the SCOTUS of the Supreme Court of the United States have stopped that deployment. And did you notice what he said? Trump tried to enact a law.
Hey, everybody, Rob Bonta,
Watch this.
California Attorney General. Thank you all for joining us today on the heels of our success in securing a temporary restraining order to block President Trump and Defense Secretary Hegseth from deploying members of the California National Guard in Los Angeles and directing them to return control of the Guard to the governor of California, Governor Gavin Newsom. The order goes into effect at noon tomorrow. This isn't the final decision in our case, and it doesn't yet make a determination on the Marines that have been deployed. However, it's still a very important step forward in protecting our communities and our rights while we continue to make our case in court. It's also a critical early indication that upon quick review of the facts in our case, the court sees the merits of our argument regarding the unlawful activation of the National Guard. As we argue in our lawsuit, the Trump administration had no right to federalize 4,000 California National Guards people without authorization from Governor Newsom. Trump's actions were illegal, trampled on our state sovereignty, escalated tension on the ground, and promoted rather than quelled unrest.
Now watch and pay attention to he first established he's trying to argue Trump actions was illegal. And now he's going to bring in an important part on why Trump did what he did. Okay? And this is what he's going to try to downplay, which will legalize his actions. So he got to downplay what he about to say next, because this will give the act in which he's going to talk about will give Trump the authority to do exactly what he did. Okay, now again, so check this out. I'm not going to say the act. I want to see if y'all catch it. What he's going to call it.
On our state sovereignty, escalated tension on the ground, and promoted rather than quelled unrest. With his orders, the president invoked a law that can only be used in the event of a potential rebellion, threats of a foreign invasion, or if the federal government cannot enforce federal laws. None of that is the case here. We aren't in the throes of a rebellion. We are not under threat of an invasion. Nothing is preventing the federal government from enforcing federal law. The situation in Los Angeles last weekend didn't warrant the deployment of military troops, and their arrival only inflamed the situation.
Do you notice something? Did he tell anyone, and everybody who watched his entire video, did he ever name that law?
No.
No.
Never.
You see? Said, you see he didn't name it?
Nah, he didn't.
So he's making reference to the Insurrection Act of 1807, which he didn't say it. So when you listen, and that's what aggravates me about them, is that you got to look into what they talking about. See, we're going to get behind, I want to get down to the whole issue anyway, the immigration. We got to look at that. But I started here because of, this is where I said the deceit is. Bro, you could have said the Insurrection Act of 1807. Now, if you notice another nuance, who determines whether there was an insurrection? Because he said none of that is happening here. Now I'm gonna let you play something else out because he's gonna say something else, and then we're gonna investigate this insurrection. Any questions or comments yet, or anything? Everybody heard it clear? Let me know.
No question.
Okay. Was you about to say something, B?
Nah, go ahead. Keep it going.
Okay. Now watch this now. He's going to talk about, because remember the idea is insurrections, and notice how he make mention of the peaceful protests. Look what he says.
Local law enforcement are trained, experienced, and resourced to enforce the law within our borders. They're trained to control crowds, protect public safety, and protect the right to peaceful protest. That's their job. That's what they do, not our military's job. Our military forces are trained to defend us in war and respond to natural disasters. California National Guard troops work every day under the command of the governor to prevent fentanyl from crossing our border and infiltrating our neighborhoods. They stand ready to respond to natural disasters, to fires, floods, and earthquakes at a moment's notice. And when necessary, they stand ready for the
Hold on,
governor.
Judah. That nigga talking too much.
You see, he is, ain't he though? Real fast.
Yeah, that fool talking too much, man. Them protests ain't peaceful.
That's what I see. He's gonna bring it up again, but you see, he explained when the federal government do not need to intervene.
Right.
This is when there's peaceful protests.
Right.
And this damn devil spoke right over it. He's gonna mention it again, but he's gonna say it real, you know how they say the devil real cunning.
Right. Trump even let you know that's why he sent them.
We're gonna show you though. That's okay. Tonight, I just want people to see the footage.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
this,
real
go
slick.
ahead.
He real slick.
Yeah, he is. Real slick. And that's why when I listen to him, I get a sense of urgency, because they saying so much. Like brother, man, he talking too much, and I'm talking too much now. Let's check this out again. We caught him when he said the government or the local government state is there to deal with peaceful protests. Did you want to say something else on that before I let it play, bro? Nishan?
No. I thought he
Oh,
was about to. I thought you was gonna say not the Resurrection Act, but I thought you was gonna. It's that other one.
insurrection.
Not the means to the insurrection, right? I thought you was gonna mention that posse comment. I have to look the word up. It's another act that they were trying to that was being mentioned, but he didn't mention it though. But don't worry about it right now. Just go ahead.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking about. It's in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, now check this out. Check this out as we let this play. Remember, the government federal will not intervene in peaceful protests. We all agree with that. Now watch him.
He has done multiple times, including as recently as January, to natural disasters. California National Guard troops work every day under the command of the governor to prevent fentanyl from crossing our border and infiltrating our neighborhoods. They stand ready to respond to natural disasters, to fires, floods, and earthquakes at a moment's notice. And when necessary, they stand ready for the governor to send them where they're needed, as he has done multiple times, including as recently as January of this year, when he sent them to the wildfires in Southern California, activating these troops over the weekend for protests that were largely peaceful and that local law enforcement had at the time confirmed were under control, is unfair. And
there you go. You hear the trickery?
Yeah, when he if I don't know if you guys call, I'm pretty sure you caught it, but you can see that he compared how the governor sent in the military to take care of some fires. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, no. When he said the protest was largely peaceful. Because remember, his
Largely.
premise is based on the government federal can't come in if it's peaceful protest. So
Yeah, if it's
now he got
peaceful,
to
they can't come
follow
in.
up and justify. Right. So now he didn't say they were completely peaceful. He can't, because it's too much footage showing the opposite. So he used the terminology largely peaceful.
Majority of it was peaceful. So yeah, because he can't really necessarily lie. He has to kind of be truthful about it. So he was somewhat being truthful.
Right.
Yeah.
And what is that? What is largely peaceful? What are the percentages here?
Yeah.
Violence is violence. What is that? Is
Yeah,
something
it's either peaceful or it's not.
or it's not.
Yeah.
And so this is what we're going to investigate. That's why when we look at it, okay, Trump broke the laws. Okay, there's some nuances here. So the act he's making reference to is this. Insurrection Act. This is the Insurrection Act of 1807. Okay. In fact, I'll even pull up another one for us that gets right to the point. And then we're going to look at some articles. Go ahead. Somebody want to say something? Hold on one moment. Did I catch that? Somebody was about to say something? Can y'all still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear
No.
you.
Yes.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm looking that up myself too. I gotta have that on point.
So this is the Insurrection Act We're going to look it up there, and we're going to look at one that spells it out right away. Okay. Can you all see that Insurrection Act 1807?
Yes, sir.
It says in all cases of insurrection or obstruction to the laws, either of the United States or of any individual state or territory, where it is lawful for the President of the United States to call forth the militia for the purpose of suppressing such insurrection or of causing the laws to be duly executed. So he tried to say, well, no one was stopping the federal government from executing their laws. This is what he mean by this. This is the act he's quoting. Our focus is insurrection as well. It shall be lawful for him, the president, to employ for the same purposes such part of the land or naval force of the United States as shall be judged necessary, having first observed all prerequisites of the law in that respect. So if there's an insurrection, now this is a nuance where, just like it happened back in 2020, where Tim Walz and and I'm sure those who later BA, you could probably verify this. You had rioting going on with Black Lives Matter. You had rioting in Minnesota, and I think even in Colorado, and the governors refused the assistance of the United States government. This was before Trump was leaving his term. They refused it. Now, the Insurrection Act does not address when you have a governor who, for what any reason, would allow rioting or insurrection to take place. So this is one of the nuances. So he's allowing it. He's not calling the troops. To justify him allowing it, it says, he said, well, the protest was largely peaceful. Any questions? Or so this is the law he's making reference to. Any questions or comments on it?
Yeah, you're right. When they had the protests out here at the Black Lives Matter, some of the people who were protesting, they were violent.
Yes.
Yeah, no, so I would definitely. I mean, they were not as peaceful as they were claiming to be. You know, you may have had some people who were not participating in the violence, but you had people who were going into the stores, doing all kind of madness in the streets, vandalizing people's cars. Yeah, it was bad. I remember.
Now, we're gonna see footage today on what was happening just a week ago. And this is the game they play. Now I have another one here. Wait a minute. It's one of these. Wait a minute. This is 31, 32. Okay. 32. Chapter 15, Insurrection. Section 332. These are important. Use of militia and armed forces to enforce federal authority. Whenever the president considers that unlawful obstructions, combinations or assemblages, or rebellion against the authority of the United States make it impracticable to enforce the laws of the United States in any state or territory by the ordinary course of judicial proceedings, he may call into federal service such of the militia of any state and use such of the armed forces as he considers necessary to enforce those laws or to suppress the rebellion. Now, this is important because now we see him acting according to this. So, what was the state's militia? The state's militia would have been the National Guards. So he employed the National Guards and any federal service at this time when, they ain't had, I don't think they had the Marines at this time, but he was able to employ any Army, Navy. At that time, they didn't have the Air Force either, right? Not that I know of, but he can employ them. So he's not exercising dominion like some damn tyrant. He's reasonably looking at what is available to him by law. And this is the law we're reading. Section 333. Now, the argument that our adversaries, the so-called Democrats, are bringing out, they're trying to make it seem like the governor had full control, which he did, you can argue. He just refused to act. And this is not the first time they did that. So there are no laws on the books that shows a president or one who sits in authority. What if you run into this nuance where the governor in authority refuses to act for whatever political reasons? He can take control, but he's not. And so for you to help the citizen, now you enforce this or you act upon this law, and then that governor, because of this nuance, could come and say, no, I got full control. You see the game? This is what we dealing with. That's why we just can't watch videos. That's why I put watchers beware. We they bank on that. Videos are a bunch of sound bites. If we want to understand the video, we got to do some digging on our own. Section 333. Interference with state and federal law. The president, by using the militia or armed forces or both, which would be the National Guard as the state militia and the Marines as the armed forces, or by any other means, shall take such measures as he considers necessary to suppress in a state any insurrection, domestic violence. You see, he didn't mention that. Unlawful combination or conspiracy, if it so hinders the execution of the laws of that state and of the United States within the state that are part or class of its, and I don't have the extended part. But just giving a gist on, let's get into the mind of the Trump administration. This is not about Trump. Hell, if this was Biden, we'll be reading the same thing. I'm not worried about the persons. We can't let personal interference get in when we trying to decipher things. Because as Martin argued, if we don't have the proper education, we let personal things get involved, we could be misdirected. We have to be built on as much solid grounds as we can. Now, everybody see this, right? My screen is, I don't think it was paused. Everybody see that? Section 332, section 333.
Yeah.
All right. Any
Reserve.
questions, comments? Anything anybody want to say thus far? Is it clear? Any confusion? Any clarity?
Oh no, it's clear as daylight right now. Because again, it's interesting how they will word things. That's one of the things we got to pay attention to. Like he mentioned earlier, he said it was mostly peaceful, but that's the whole thing. They can throw in these little nuanced words, you know what I'm saying, throw you off with a certain adjective or a certain verb, And that's where people get carried away. I totally agree with the whole just watching video thing. Because once we understand what the law says, and I think another thing people getting tripped up too, they look at the personality of Trump and all of these things that was said by him. But if he is going by law, I think that's what's getting people, is they don't understand the law. So they focusing on the reactions of the people. But man, the law is the law. That's all I can say.
Right. And if we wanted to change anything in the law, just like Martin had to do it, just like our ancestors coming out of slavery had to do it, we must do it by law. So to argue that Trump is just coming in, usurping the authority over the governor, he's causing all of these problems with peaceful protests is false. It's false. It boils down to who's determining what is insurrection. But in this uh, 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 section, it's not even just insurrections. It's also is also here in section, I think 332, domestic violence. Okay, so keep that note because we got to get down to the bottom of this, period. And that is, let's go, we'll go back and visit this, but we got to get down to the bottom of something. And that is the ICE or the enforcement of illegals or undocumented migrants. Okay. Anybody, let's look at this so we can put this thus far into context. Then we'll go back to the insurrection aspect. Now this is from CBSnews.com. It says, amid Trump crackdown, illegal border crossings plunged to levels not seen in decades. Now, this is what had to be established first. And when we're looking at law, right? And I mean, even on basic law, a police come up on you, and that's what a police officer was explaining to me. They're simply there to do the job. If you're innocent, you will have your day in court. That's just how the law works. And a police officer was explaining to me, because he was an advocate of people knowing the law. He said, I'm not about to have a conversation in the street. Okay, you're suspected of this. We're not going to have your court case in the street. That's why you have your day in court. So today you going to jail. And you can make your day in court in the next morning. But according to the law, we're not here to go back and forth as an attorney and judge. You're a suspect. This is the reason why we put you under arrest. If this reason isn't true, then you deal with it in court. But to resist arrest now would just cause you more problems. That is a simple truth. It may be an inconvenience, but it's how the law is designed. So you can put up a fight with the officer, he get beat, go to jail, next thing you know, you resist and arrest everything, or you go according to the law, beat the case, and then eventually, if the officers was crooked through the courts of law, you can address that grievance. So this is the same thing here. This whole ICE movement is people calling. That's where they get most of their tips, from people in the neighborhood. It's not like Trump is looking in your cupboards and knocking on your doors. That's the part they're leaving out. And this is the important part that's being left out. Out of all biasness, let's get rid of that. Just look at the facts. Okay, what are the numbers of illegals coming in? They could look at a few cases where these people are to be here legally. We won't even argue that right now. Let them have their day in court. But let's address the facts. You got hundreds of thousands of them who are here illegally. You got thousands of them who are also committing crimes. Is that a fact? So they did numbers. Amid Trump crackdown, illegal border crossings plunged to levels not seen in decades. Do anyone have any clue the amount of undocumented migrants coming into America per month? Do anyone just even have a remote number?
No, I know you said that interview, they said they were coming in by the thousands.
Yes. Do anyone else have any, because this is important, because this changes the context of things. If we know they're coming in, something must be done. So outside of all emotions and babies crying, because people say, well, well, this baby being taken. Look, that's how law works. If the parents came in illegally and they wanted to find a loophole in the law and have a baby here because the Constitution said if you're born here, then you are a citizen, they think it's a loophole, but they only gonna make their baby suffer. But there's nothing in the Constitution to address that nuance. So what do? Just let them come in? This is how it really works outside of emotions. So that's why Trump is arguing of the adjustment of the Constitution, just like Abraham Lincoln argued. Whoever wanted to change the law, they want to fault the man because he feel that this is a nuance and a loophole. So he's not just going to come and say, you can't come in because I said so. And all of this criticism is revealing he's going through the right processes. He's going to make a petition to Congress. Congress is going to make a petition to either make an amendment or draft a law that's going to be an amendment to this said law that if the parents came in illegally, for example, and they have a child here, this will not apply. If the parents came here legally and they're going through the proper processes, even though they don't have citizenship, they may have green cards, but they're going through the processes. Then if they baby born here, then they could be citizens. See, it's intelligent, lawful ways to address this. But what do? Just let them in? And again, don't get it confused. I am not going against the Latino population. I'm not going against the Haitian population. These are my people. But my argument on why they're coming here is a totally different argument. And I can't merge the two. It get messy. So I have to compartmentalize it and all of us must do, or else the waters get murky and we'll make a fool out of ourselves. We must put everything in its proper order, rightly dividing it. I can argue on Mexico and Puerto Rico and Haiti and everything else on why they have to come here on a different argument. But right now, I have to, and we have to address the laws at hand. And that's why my consistent point, what laws has he broken? Before we could jump on any bandwagon and fight any fight, before we ready to go fall on any hill, we got to know what we're standing on. So apparently no one said nothing. So that means no one have a right, even a remote idea on how many people were coming in illegally by the month, not the year, but by the month. I'm going to ask again, anybody?
About roughly estimated around 8,000 a month. They say about, I just looked it up. They say about estimate 270 encounters a day. So yeah, we roughly estimate about 8,000 a month.
And that's the low number.
Say that again.
That's the number from the numbers that, or the levels that plunged.
Oh, you know what? I think that was, what's the date that's giving me? Mm-hmm. This might have been around February of
2025.
Okay, yeah. Yep, that's February recent. 2025. Yep.
Yes. So those are the numbers. That's still a lot. But those are the numbers under the Trump administration. Now watch this. This is the stats given by the Border Patrol. Historical illegal crossings along the United States southern border since 2000. Year 2000, how many came in? Month of March. The month of March. 220,000. Let's go forward 10 years. April 2010, 55,000. This is how many coming in illegally. Okay, let's move to 2020 because it was low until Biden and them came in. And I'm here to tell you it's strategic. Let's get past pulling all of the heartstrings. The Democrats always push for migrants. You know why? Do anybody know why? Politically. It's important for us to understand this.
What was the question?
Why have the Democrats push for migrants or to increase the population?
Or labor?
Partly.
Us capitalists get that, especially them farmers. Potentially,
Voters?
Voters.
Representation to increase.
That's right.
Gerrymander.
Right. So they have to do censuses.
Uh-huh.
So therefore, if they get more people in an area, they can add more seats to the House of Representatives because the House of Representatives go off of population, not the senators, but the House of Representatives.
Well, that would make the Electoral College go up too, right?
No. You know what? You're right. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yes, it will. The Electoral College. Absolutely. I'm speaking too soon. Yes, it will. Yep, where they'll need more electorates. Now, if these people are coming in and the Democratic Party is supporting them, it's likely they can get a significant percentage of them that will support them. It's strategic. So in May 2019, 132,000 came in. This is the beginning of the Biden administration. In 2022, when it was going back and forth with Kamala, this is what ICE is addressing. Let's look and see why this is happening. In 2021, July of 2021, 200,000 came in. That's when they were saying to Kamala, the borders are, where is she? And they were giving interviews of Border Patrol. They said it's a mess. May 2022, 224,000 a month. It reached its peak just before they left office in 2023, December, or going into their final year, 249,000. Undocumented. Why isn't the media explaining this? Unless we investigate, we will not have the proper context of what we're looking at on the news. They just get us all in a emotional frenzy. So now when Trump took office, it dropped. And that's what CBS is saying. All the way down to 8,000 because he let them do their job. They were told to stand down, Border Patrol. They wanted the migrants in. It's a political move. They don't really care about no damn migrants. And then if they could use social unrest and paint the present day administration as dictators, then it's going to sway public opinion to go back on their side for votes. We being played. They get in front of the camera and play us. But we got to look at the numbers. So that's CBS. Any questions or comments? Now remember he said that the Remember he said that the protest was largely peaceful? Real clever, right? All right. This is a news article I found, I think it's the same one I was thinking about before, right? And this is what I'm presenting for people to subscribe, the NMP members. This is ground news. All right. Can everybody still see my screen?
Yes.
So
Yes.
Yes.
I can, now ground news is important. I've learned about it from conservative platform. I want to subscribe now because if you notice here, you see where it says left, center, and right. Y'all see that?
Yes. But
What?
that's a paid subscription though, right?
Yes, or else you could watch or you could read 5 free articles a day.
Okay.
I think it's like, every month one of them like $8, something like that. And I think the cheapest is like 2 something. But what this news site does, it gives you the news articles from the leftists, those who's in the center, and the right. So they give you the news articles from all different or many different aspects, and it shows you what conservatives left out, what the leftists left out. It gives you these percentages. It shows you bias distribution. It lets you know like different articles they didn't address. For example, it's showing you the leftist news feed in Phobe, a right news feed town hall, center ABC, right Fox News. So they give you all of these news articles, right? But they also show you as you go through the site who left out what and what news articles that they address more than others. So what do we find? So we won't get off the point, but if anyone have any more questions about ground news, just let me know. But it says here more than 80 arrests as anti-ICE protesters clash with New York PD in Manhattan. Okay, that's number one. And they come with this summary from all of the news articles. Okay. Now, I want to get to California though. Let's move to California. 36% of Americans support LA protests over ICE raids. 45 oppose. All right, they did the survey. But notice what they found from all of the news articles, YoungGov, the Washington Post, Newsweek. All right, that Washington Post is left, Newsweek is center. So they're showing you, right, how all of them responds, right? So what did they find? Violent riots and protests broke out in Los Angeles following ICE raids on June 9th, 2025, leading to arrests and injuries. All of them addressed it. And this is the bullet points from putting all of the news feeds together. There was violence. Let's move forward just to show you. This is an excellent reference because it's not just right wing, it's not just left wing, it's not just center. They're showing you all of the different, and one excellent thing about it is they show you which news feeds left out certain reports. Now watch another one. LA PD chief speaks out about deployment of military forces to anti-ICE protests. So we have we have the Daily Mirror, we have Los Angeles Times, NBC Miami. I'm gonna read this first and I'm gonna show you some videos. Okay, so what did they find? So far we see that there was violence. And the attorney general who claimed Trump was breaking the law, as we read the law, the Insurrection Act, he didn't even name the act. But then he tried to cover his tracks by saying it was largely peaceful because we have documents of violence. Los Angeles experienced its fourth consecutive day of anti-ICE protests on Monday, June 9th, 2025, resulting in violence and property damage downtown. So we're consistently having these reports of violence. He did not mention it. So we go to another news article. Donald Trump proven right again. Overwhelming force shows who's boss at LA riots. Okay. So this is they're going to begin to discuss that there was violence happening. Now I'm reading the articles first because we following up with, remember, the Insurrection Act of 1807. Whenever the president considers that unlawful obstructions, combinations or assemblages, or rebellion against the authority of the United States make it impracticable to enforce the laws of the United States in any state or territory by the ordinary course of judicial proceedings. Did this fit? Yes, because they were obstructing the arrest of illegal, undocumented people, and the insurrections or the resistance was stopping the federal agents from fulfilling their duties. And the reason why this guy did not read or tell us the Insurrection Act is something you got to look up, because it'll start to explain. So he said what he was doing was unlawful, but he mixed it in. But the argument of what was unlawful was he took away the right of the governor to deploy their own militia, which was the National Guard. That's why he said in an interview they still don't have anything on the Marines yet, because that's a federal agency. So they mad because he federalized the National Guard. But the nuance is, how in the heck you letting this happen and you're not doing it? But for the sake of the citizens of those who's in the violent areas, and for the sake of the ICE agents, yes, this is the law he pulled. And no matter how we feel, right? One thing we all learn, he's still he's still trying to read law and go according to law. So they were obstructed, right? Is that the name of the protest? They're trying to stop ICE agents from deporting people, but they're still not showing you 200,000, hundreds of thousands were coming in undocumented. They never give you the numbers. They just want to show isolated cases, or this person who they dragging them out of school. It's a game they play until we go back and look at the numbers. This is who ICE is after. Then we learn why the Democratic Party let them in. And I'm not arguing or talking about how they taken away, like some people upset because the migrant is taking away resources for the local citizens. That's a whole nother argument too. I'm not even arguing that. None of us should. All of these are compartmentalized, so we can't merge them together. So, all right, yes. Is there a problem with resources? Yes, we need to address that problem. We need to address the problem why the migrants is coming over here anyway. What's happening in their own land? What's causing it? These are all different political issues that we should be well-rounded in and able to address to make sense of the situation. But right now, it's exactly what's happening. An obstruction from the state of California and allowing the federal government to perform their duties. So he may call into federal service such of the militia of any state. So he used the militia, which is the National Guard, that's what we call them now, and used such of the armed forces, the Marines, as he considers necessary to enforce those laws or to suppress the rebellion. The president, section 333, by using the militia or armed forces or both, or by any other means, shall take such measures as he considers necessary to suppress in a state any insurrections, or get this, domestic violence, which is happening there. And this is the nuance. That's why they got to go to court, is because, again, when this law is written, they're not expecting any governors to really not try to subdue the insurrection. This is a nuance like this, and this is not the first time they did it. They let property get destroyed. Who's funding it? That's why I said it earlier. Who bought those bricks? Who fund the Black Lives Matter thing? This is the stuff we have to look at. Get down to it. No, they didn't want no interference. And so what do the president do when this is happening? So in any state or any insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination, or a conspiracy of it, if he deems it necessary to suppress it, and he got grounds. First, they're rebelling against our ICE agents to do their job. So the only thing that this guy could do, the attorney general, was to say that they can handle it. They're trained for peaceful protests. And then he later on didn't expound when he meant, what do you mean by largely? What do you mean by largely peaceful? Crafty. So let's look and see what he mean by largely peaceful. Watch this. Let me go back to this one. Let's open up another one. If anybody want to say anything or comment thus far, feel free. Hold on. While I'm pulling this other one up so we can make the screen larger.
I was going to say, what are you going to say? In the beginning, when the protest first started, it was peaceful. And then it got rowdy.
Dig it. Now watch this. Watch the footage. And this is the context of the act, the 1807 Act. This is the context. So think about if you president. Because again, we're not looking at the persons, we have to look at first the facts. We have hundreds of thousands coming in past the border. American citizens are reporting them. That's how ICE is getting their leads. And then you have this. And it's the same thing that happened in 2020. Same thing. In fact, when I first seen some of the footage, I said, this must be reviewing what happened in 2020. Watch this.
The change is already happening, gang. We are in the middle of a global shift. Now, I break it all down in my most important book yet, America Awaken. Go to americaawaken.us and get early access now.
The reality is we see peaceful protests watching in Los Angeles.
Get your hands off these poor people and just trying to live their lives, man. Trying to live their lives.
Demonstrators or peaceful.
It was just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn.
They're saying that they have it under control. Things are under control. Peaceful protests are taking place.
I'm not gonna watch this entire video. So when I first seen that, I'm thinking this was back in 2020. No, that's footage of what's going on. So when
Just some of the top
hold on.
auditions for the new Baghdad Bob, the new spokesperson hired for one purpose, and that is to blatantly lie to your face. But to no avail, despite all the efforts by the legacy media to convince their dwindling audience that these are just fiery but mostly peaceful protests, those protests have largely dissipated. As of last night, reports are that the riots have fizzled, largely because of Trump's cracking down and restoring law and order.
See, that's the important part, though. What did the attorney general mean by overwhelmingly peaceful? You see what it suggests, but at the same time, it's deceiving.